I have been quite amazed by the number of people who identify as monarchists and who are fans of Russian President Vladimir Putin. How can a man who is a former KGB officer of the Soviet Union, president of republic, and who is at odds with almost every remaining monarchy in the world, able to have any monarchists as his fans? Not to mention that said republic is preserving USSR traditions, and we can see their soldiers on battlefields in surrounding countries waving red flag. In my experience, this usually comes down to the draw of nationalism, Russian orthodoxy, and support of his policies, as well as the image of Putin as the man standing opposed to the liberal Western world that these people despise. Let's do some Russia fact checking. This is a country in which the second largest political faction is the Communist Party, that thinks the height of Russian greatness was the Stalin era. During Putin's reign, Putin has privatized the economy somewhat, although most Western companies have left Russia in past year. He has encouraged Russians to have more children, but then again, more than 1 million young has fled Russia in past year. And he has shown more favor to the Russian Orthodox Church than past governments, although Russian Orthodox Church stopped communication with almost all other Orthodox churches since 2018. Let me also say that when it comes to foreign policy, during the first years, he was open to West somewhat. And since 2014 invasion of Ukraine and annexation of Crimea, Russia is more and more isolated, being today more isolated and cut from the international markets than in USSR time. Does NATO-US relation matter? Another problem from the pan-monarchist point of view is that despite how anti-American many monarchists are in some countries, most of the monarchies in the world are officially or unofficially under the protection of United States. Virtually every monarchy in Europe, say for example Liechtenstein, is a member of NATO or is under the protection of a NATO member. For a pan-monarchist, there is no getting around this fact, and in the world as it is today, the United States is defending the few remaining monarchies and the Russian Federation is defending their enemies. In the Middle East, the Arab monarchies are on friendly terms with United States, whereas the regimes on the most friendly terms with Russia are anti-monarchy, such as Islamic Republic of Iran and its surrogate in Syria. Likewise, in East Asia, the United States is allies with monarchies of Japan and Thailand, with ties strengthening with Malaysia, while Russia is on the friendliest terms with People's Republic of China. This being the same communist China that positively despises Japan, has territorial disputes with them, also Malaysia, and even Little Brunei, and which inspired the overthrow of the monarchy in Nepal. For monarchists looking purely from a nationalistic or religious perspective, none of this must matter. They are non-pan-monarchists and must believe that monarchy can exist in a vacuum and or that it can still come back even if the last monarchy on earth is extinguished. Okay, and what about nationalism? So fine, but even from that nationalistic standpoint, I still cannot understand what would turn an Orthodox Christian and Russian nationalist with monarchist leanings into a Putin fanboy. First, on the nationalist front, I see nothing that Putin has done that warrants such adulation as he often receives in terms of Russian nationalism, especially because he held office during the days of famously bad Yeltsin. And his first act on becoming president was to make sure that his former boss would not face prosecution from the corruption that left Russia in such a bad state. His nationalist credentials are also certainly not helped by his infatuation with communist China. He has effectively sold out Russia to a country that even the Soviets never trusted when they were both officially communists. Since officially signing his Best Friends Forever treaty with China, Putin handed over Trabov Island, Zhenbao Island, and half of Bolshoi Usursky Island to China, a follow-up to the 1991 agreement that also saw Russia cede territory to China. This caused the forced relocation of Cossacks living in this region, but has routinely been ignored by professed Russian nationalists. Then there was this sellout of Russian mineral reserves in Siberia to Chinese exploitation at far below market value, not even mentioning recent oil and gas sales below market prices. Combine these with demographic disparity in the region between the two countries, and Putin may have tossed China keys to the whole of the Russian Far East. Finally, we have the issue of monarchy, which, to my mind at least, is bound up with, as some evidently fail to notice, is legitimacy. From a monarchist's point of view, Putin is an illegitimate leader of an illegitimate regime. Monarchists should not give support to any Russian leader who is not a proper Tsar, or the Romanov dynasty, nor to any government that is not a government of the Russian Empire. One could argue that every post-1917 government in Russia is illegitimate and should not exist and has no right to the loyalty of the Russian people. Attitude of Putin fanboys tells me that Putin is doing something, in a way, worse than anything even the Soviets did to monarchism, and it is to make republicanism in Russia seem acceptable to monarchists. Russia should not get comfortable with republicanism. While certainly I'm wishing no harm to come to Russian people, I don't want anyone to settle for anything less than the restoration of Orthodox monarchy and Russian Empire. Putin thinks he can achieve greater unity by just taking the wide view of Russia with no real distinction for Tsarist era, the Soviet era, or the Federation era. But the fact remains that he has not broken with the Republican government, nor he has managed to stop the Communist Party from remaining the second most powerful political force in the country and communist traditions alive in all spheres of society. Every city still has Lenin's statue at city center. Russian soldiers are marching under the Red Army banners. Now, Putin professes to be anti-communist while showing nostalgia for Soviet past and allying with communist regimes from Cuba to China. Russian Federation officially rehabilitated Romanovs of the imperial family in 2008 after 3 previous refusals to do so. The problem is that it makes the lack of restoration of monarchy all the more infuriating, particularly if Putin, as his fans so often claim, has been pushing for the rehabilitation. And why is this? If the Tsar did nothing wrong, if the Russian government is admitting that his murder was unjust, then what exactly is the basis for their continued refusal to restore the monarchy and all the property unjustly seized from the imperial family? Grand Duchess Maria Vladimirovna, recognized by the Patriarch of Moscow and all Russia as head of the House of Romanov, has said that she is ready to respond to a call from the people to become Empress of Russia. There is nothing stopping Putin to do this, with his long-standing dominance of the political scene in Russia, if he wished this to be. If the Tsar and his family were treated unjustly, if they were innocent of the crimes they were accused of, as the Russian courts have recognized, then there is no reason, even by their standards, why the Romanov dynasty should not be restored to their rightful place with sincerest apologies from the government. And that is the bottom line. In this video, we explore 2 never-before-seen documents from the British archives relating to another communist leader, Josip Broz Tito of Yugoslavia. How Tito, being a Soviet agent, supported the Nazis up to the moment when Nazis broke the partnership with Soviets and attacked USSR. The conversation between Foreign Office and Churchill's cabinet.